Voice check.
Voice and checking.
Voice and checking. Voice and checking. That's what we're doing. We have voice and checking.
Voice check. Voice and checking.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Voice and checking. That's what we're doing. We have voice and checking. Are they hearing that?
Yeah, what's right there is what they're hearing. It's the mic hot, so anything you say now is going out in the kill the loop so we can start it.
Hello, universe.
Voice and checking, that's what we're doing. Hello all. And welcome to the Univoice. Okay, let me get all these things turned off here. I need to turn that off. And I'll fit this to screen. Transform that puppy. Fit to screen. There we go. Oops, sorry, Ken. I chopped your head off. Ah, I know how to fit that. Hold on. I can fix that. I can fix that. Transform. Fit to screen. Then go to... Wrong one. Wrong one! Other things you don't want to hear the captain say.
Also, oops.
Another common one. My personal favorite. I sound like the Aardvark that Jackie Mason used to voice. Oh, hello everybody. Hello Glue Troopers. How's everybody doing tonight? And yep, thank you. Survived another lap around the sun. I could use that song. You saved another lap. You know, survived another lap around the sun. Happy birthday. I actually have that one in here somewhere. I'll probably pick it up and play it at the end. So, guys, hope everybody's doing well. I have my buddy Ken with me. You've probably heard him. You know, I think you haven't actually been on the show. I think you've some pictures or something. I forget. Anyway,
nope, first time.
My buddy down in Fort Lauderdale. And hey, Barry, Ken is. Yeah, they saw your picture when you, me, and Barry had dinner. I posted that on one of the.
Oh.
Okay. So anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Not tea. You have your lukewarm tap water over there, right?
I am covered.
You're covered. Okay. So, guys, it's first off, thanks for all the birthday thanks. And a couple of quick little things. We were just getting ready to get started, and I happened to go outside, and there was a box out there. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Ken, if you would do the honors. I got the, I got the letter right here.
Read that, I'll get the
Okay.
interesting parts.
And this is from Frank up in Ohio. Hey, Max, there are some kits I said I would send. Please sift through the peanuts carefully. We did, as it's partially assembled. And had this for 25 to 30 years. Obviously, I'm not going to finish. Hope you don't mind it. It's already started. No, I don't mind at all. Maybe you can do some good with it. The other kit is a Heller 150 scale L4. Didn't know if you had one. No, I don't, but do now. Thank you. My father was an instructor in L4s during World War II. I have 8 of these kits, so I'm glad to give you one. Hope to do a diorama of L4s with the Broody system. That should be cool. Thanks again, Frank and Model On. Well, Frank, I appreciate it. Now, guys, this is from a company called Jetco. I haven't had a chance to look them up. By the way, look at that. I just noticed that strip planked cowling.
Mm-hmm.
Frank's done some beautiful work on this thing. Frank, I don't know if I can live up to your work.
Yeah.
Ken commented when we pulled it out of the box how nice the workmanship was. It's surprisingly sturdy. And for those who don't know, I didn't take a picture, so I'll just hold it up to the camera. For those who are, the light's kind of washing out. The cowling is done with something that looks like something called strip planking. They literally put strips down and sand them down and everything, unless that was one piece that was just grooved out. But the workmanship's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good Lord, man.
That's about as good
And
as
you got
I could
the bracing members and everything. It's built like a real airplane.
You can see pieces of the
dowel.
wax paper.
Oh yeah. And Ken, you want to show them the box?
Yeah.
The other parts are in a box, and you can bring that Heller kit that he sent. Also, we'll show that real quick.
I'll bring the box.
Ah, Agu, hey, my nephew's here. Agu, glad you. Well, my wife's nephew. I consider him my nephew. This is the box that came in, and I'm gonna have to look up Jetco. I don't think they're still around anymore. Judging by the looks of the box, I'm gonna guess 50s vintage. Hey, John. So, and you got the Heller kit?
Yep.
and he sent me the Heller L4, which is a 150 scale. Now, why Heller went with 1 to 50, I can only guess. I know there was a big turf battle. I'm not sure. I have to check the vintage of this kit. I know there was a big turf battle in the 60s over the scale. I call it the scale wars. I think the Russians wanted 1 to 30, the Japanese wanted 1 to 50, and the Americans wanted 1 to 48, and the Americans won out. But some kits are still done slightly off scale. Not so much that you notice. But actually, this kit looks more recent than that. So it may just be they had the molds around and repopped the kit. I think you can. Mm-hmm. You can set that up there if you want.
Okay.
But, Frank, I appreciate that. So, boy, just all kinds of things happened today. Hey, Paul. Paul, since you're here, I'll bring this up now. Paul has been sending me a bunch of stuff on a lot of the biological kits and the transparent kits. Remember when Renwall had the Invisible Man, the Invisible Woman, which, believe it or not, some people wanted banned. Oh, it's pornography. I was like, yeah, okay, no. But hey, it was the 60s. So actually, I think it was the late 50s. So anyway, I did not appreciate how many of these transparent kits there were. Now, a lot of you guys probably know a lot of the model companies at one point wanted to break into the education market. Now, partly because from a business standpoint, this makes a lot of sense. And some of these kits actually sold very well. But you think about it, when you're building models for, just regular hobbyist consumption, you run into the problem that eventually everybody that wants one's got one. And you got to wait another 5-10 years for another group of kids to come up. And by then, interests have changed. But when you're dealing with educational stuff, the kids have to enter class every year. So every year you get a new crop of people. And the human body or whatever it is that they're making the model of doesn't really change. I mean, the human body's the same now as it will be in 10 years. Assuming we don't have another Chernobyl. But that was a joke, Ken. You can laugh. You're way too stoic. Anyway.
I was just listening to you be Max.
You don't get enough of that during the regular day. Anyway, so... and some of the kits did so well, but they made fish and insects and reptiles and dogs and cows. And I'm going to try and put together a video on it. I didn't appreciate how many bloody kits are out there. And so it's going to be a while before I get that done, even though Paul has sent me a lot of great information and photographs and images and stuff. Just with all the other projects going on, I'll get to it when I get to it. But I'm always glad to have another project on tap. I'm also still working on the Women in Air Racing series. Again, there's some really interesting stuff about Pancho Barnes and Jackie Cochran and a lot of the others that you might have heard on a few documentaries. We'll be digging into that a little bit.
The Visible Politician's Brain Kit.
It's I think that's what they call cello-vision.
It's an empty fishbowl with a lid.
And a couple of you guys already commented on the Brody system. Yeah, they had basically a catapult for light aircraft. And these things operated out of completely I mean, I know a Cub doesn't need much room, but, why use 100 feet or 200 feet of runway when you can pop that bubby right out?
Actually, you don't even really need a runway. You could do it with a circular area.
Mm.
I read about
the one to put on the wingtip and the plane would fly in a circle, get up speed like a big rotor blade, then release and off she went.
Oh, I didn't know they did that, but I did.
It was like a big U-control airplane, yeah.
Well, I did have a guy that I knew many years ago that had landed in a farmer's field with engine trouble and spent about a month repairing the engine. But when he went to go to take off, there wasn't enough room, but it was wide, it was as wide as it was long. So he just said, I'll fly in a circle until I get up enough airspeed. And it worked. Yeah.
There was a system. I remember seeing like a Popular Mechanics. And the artwork they showed was like a guy on a farm, and he had like a corral, the circular corral for horses, for training horses. He had a wingtip to the post, and he just added the power, and the plane went in a circle until it got flying speed, which with a Cub was probably 1 or 2 laps, if that. And it lifted off, and he released the wingtip and flew away. And it's not something the airplane was engineered for that I recommend, but it worked,
We got him off the
and
ground.
he's saying the Brody system got him off the LSTs. When they had to fly like Spitfires and P-40s off of these ships, and I remember seeing pictures of Cubs taking off. He saw them all racked up along the side of the ship like this. And he put one in, it was like a bunch, just some basically, I think it was just wood ramps, just flew them off. But I have to look that up after the live stream.
I haven't heard that.
Oh yeah, one of the other things I'm going to talk about is the Phantom Mustang and the Phantom Huey. And the weird thing is the Phantom Mustang seems to get repopped from time to time. I actually saw one in a clearance section. It was all busted up. I figured a lot of parts were missing at a Hobby Lobby. But you don't see the Phantom Huey. It doesn't seem to get as much love, but then the Mustang's a Mustang.
I had no idea they made so many Phantom kits.
Now, Gavin, I'm sorry to hear about you getting popped with the beer bug, but well, I'll try and keep cranking them out. So, one thing I was talking about, Ken's also really big in a model railroad club down at Deerfield Beach, right?
Yes.
Deerfield Beach, and which is near Fort Lauderdale. And one of you fine people had sent me this HO scale Italeri locomotive, which is a model of a train, but it's not it's plastic. In fact, I opened it up for the first time and took a look at it today, and it is a conventional plastic kit.
All plastic.
And I asked Ken, so what would it take to turn this into working rolling stock? Because you can obviously just put it on the layout as
Some
piece of set dressing. But you had some interesting inputs on that's not as simple a process as it sounds. And I said like, you got guys who are doing slot cars. They'll take a regular kit model car, but then they're kind of just putting it on.
Right. Well, a car is far simpler. It's just wheels. With a steam engine like this, if you want it to look halfway decent, you're going to need the same kind of mechanism that comes in the model. On top of that, the mechanism is a large portion of the model. So it would be a really complex process to take something like this. Unless you already had a beat up model that had working undercarriage, you could just take that off, like the slot cars guy, as you're saying. That would be a big challenge to motorize something like this and make it look good and work right. Way beyond my capability. Now, if it was a diesel engine, that would be a whole lot easier to do.
I'm sorry, that was just...
It's all right.
No, I wasn't trying to cut you off. Everybody knows to watch these things, they end up coughing eventually.
Yep.
So, let's see. Now, a lot of you guys had asked, and Barry's actually seen some of this. Ken has been 3D printing a model of an airplane, the Piaggio Avanti. And I'm sure most of you guys have probably seen pictures of this thing, a wild little airplane. Now, the 3D model he's been printing, and we're going to show, we actually have the model here, but this little camera wouldn't do a good job, so I took some pictures earlier. We'll get into it. But I want you to notice how skinny the wings are.
Very high aspect ratio.
This little puppy will drag race some of the slower citations. Also, the forward canard is a fixed aerodynamic piece on the real airplane.
It's on the real airplane. It's just designed for trim. The elevators are on the T-tail on the back.
So, we thought you guys might like to see some of the work that's been done that he's been doing with the model. So we just go the way we numbered them, I guess.
Sure.
All right, Ken, you can.
Okay, this is now the fuselage is mostly not glued together, so we just
we just hold them together so you have the tape. These are separate pieces. You'll see in a bit.
Yeah, the fuselage is pretty much just taped together. The last few pieces behind the wing I have glued together, and I'm just holding the tail section on. This is the first time I've actually had all the pieces all together to actually see how big this model is going to be. The wing has been glued together, but the nacelle is not on it. You can see a little hole in the top of the wing. That's where the wires come out that go back to the electric motors. The two pieces in the back, these are what's called spiralized printing, where it prints just the outside shell. It's just a single layer thick, and the purpose for that is to cut down on weight. And in the foreground, those were the engine nacelles.
Yeah, here you go.
And there's the last three sections of the fuselage on the left-hand side. In the foreground on the left is the two nose sections. They had to be printed separately because the printer that I had at the time wouldn't print the entire piece as one piece. It just didn't go high enough. And the piece to the right is inserts over top that to cover it up. I'm rather proud of this wing. The whole thing took about 3 weeks to print all the pieces, and there was a learning process involved trying to get this to come out right. I've never done 3D printing before, and I ended up going through 2 printers. The first one had a bad temperature sensor on it, and it didn't print some of the parts very well. So I sent it back and got a third one, and it did a much better job, and I have been much happier with it.
The whole thing seems a little lightweight to me. I'm not sure how well even the thicker parts are going to hold up to the abuse of an RC.
Well, when I was putting the carbon fiber rods into the wings, I had they wouldn't fit through some of the holes, so I was actually took a drill and was drilling the piece out, and it ripped the tube right out of the inside of the wing. So I said, well, this is shot. Let's see how strong it is. So I took the piece, it was the second piece out from the wing, and I tried breaking it, and I was very impressed at how strong that piece was before it finally broke. So it's going to hold together.
We shall see.
It's going to be on the heavy side. I calculated it out with the battery and everything in it, all up weight. It's going to be about 5.65 pounds.
Well, you remember when I proved, even though how well made that RCB25 I had is, under the right conditions, it'll come apart.
The RCB25. Oh, that one. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I proved that. You put enough stress on those airplanes, it will come apart.
Especially when you dive straight into a asphalt runway.
Boy, that put me went straight into. I mean, we're talking about no hesitation.
50 feet up, straight down. Yeah, from supposedly.
And Ken, why was I trying to fly the B-25 upside down?
Well, I asked him if he could do that, and tell him what you heard.
Pull back. But is it when you go inverted, you got to push the nose up, so I'll roll it inverted and pull back on the stick. But hey, guess what? When you're upside down, that's down.
Yes, it did not fly so well.
There was a little failure of cockpit resource management there.
Anyway, he put it into quite a few pieces, and because I felt so bad that I had asked him to go inverted. He'd only made one loop around the airfield, and I thought, oh, he's got this. Hey, let's try inverted.
And it was a pretty loop, too.
So he went inverted, plowed it in, and I felt bad, and I said, okay, tell you what, you buy the parts, and I'll put it all back together. And
he did.
And I did, and it flew great, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's actually still up there in the garage, ready to go flying, waiting for me to renew my club membership.
Yep.
Well, it turned into a split ass, Chuck. What I was thinking was a barrel roll. I think I'd done a couple of barrel rolls or something with that controller. Anyway, but he's like, okay, now pull up, and I'm like, yeah, oops. Yeah, we really need to brief that one better.
It was the opposite of a split ass.
Yeah, the tunnel pilot we were not. I don't know if you guys heard today, but a guy in Europe flew an airplane through now this was a planned stunt, but he flew an airplane through 2 tunnels, and it was like, 2 miles long or something?
Almost 2 miles long, yeah.
And he said the biggest threat, he actually took off in one of the tunnels, and this is like Red Bull, this is all very professionally done, but he said the biggest threat was when he went between the 2 tunnels, he got a crosswind, it almost blew him in. He had 3 feet below, 6 feet above, and 11 on each side.
Yep.
Well, all of a sudden, the Star Wars trench run or the flying through the Death Star doesn't seem quite so ridiculous.
No, that looks entirely...
Or flying through flying the X-Wings through the framework on Scarif.
Yeah, that's entirely doable.
So,
especially when somebody's shooting at you.
And I tell you what, nobody's going to be poking fun at the Italian pilots for a while. That was some hot stick flying.
The force is strong with this one.
2.4 kilometers of tunnels in Istanbul, Turkey. Okay.
Wow.
BR-41 was a 282. If you get a generic 282 or 280, you might be able to swap boilers in a cab. There you go. Yeah, you could.
It wouldn't.
This was, I think, it was a German locomotive. They sell a locomotive with a K.
It's definitely European.
Definitely. What are these? I'm wondering about something. Hold on, let me take that picture.
What those flat things in
the
front?
I've always wondered what these guards are, because you see them on European trains. I don't think I've ever seen them on an American train.
Those are for aerodynamics. It's to keep the smoke from coming down the side of the engine and blowing into the cab.
Oh, okay.
This traps the air and then funnels it so that the exhaust actually stays above the top of the engine.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
And these flat round things here in the front, those are bumpers.
This isn't an articulated engine, though, right?
No,
Okay.
it has a single set of drivers.
Ken's kind of the railroad expert.
I don't know about expert. I know a few things.
His grandfather worked for Erie, Lackawanna.
As a blacksmith in
Back when they called them blacksmiths.
in Meadville, Pennsylvania for 36 years.
That, Chuck's on top of it. Smoked it. I knew someone out there was going to know.
Smoke deflectors.
Look at that. Wow.
Hey, so many people.
Got 100 people online. Gosh.
103.
I'm flattered. Guys, I apologize because I didn't have a chance to make my notes, and I've already forgotten who sent this to me, but somebody sent me today or yesterday some pictures of these fine, high quality ink pens and ink systems. And he was telling me that for airplanes like the GB that have fine line trim, that these are really good. And I had a lot of people comment on different ways to put the fine trim on various models, which is really, that is true artisanship. I mean, that is tricky stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And I might have to find one of these and get one. A lot of you guys sent me your particular, everybody had their own way of doing it. And I gotta be honest with you, when I see a model that has like a really fine trim, like the GB just had that little cheat line, they go ahead and put it on there and they get it scaled out right, and I don't see any flaws and blemishes, I'm not above admitting to a twang of envy. I usually use the decal, the trim decal. It's just,
just a thin line.
It's just a thin line. It's a decal. You got, but that can go south on you also. But man, for the life of me, I tried trimming with an X-Acto knife, and I just never.
I always get
right.
those things twisted.
Oh Lord, that is such a. I suffer from Lackawanna. Oh, I was going to steal that.
Some people used to call it the Erie Lackawampum.
Zungwar, you been in Meadville?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to tell them about the little incident down in Connellsville? Speaking of Pennsylvania, with the Cherokee 6 and Vern.
You want to tell them?
You tell it better. If I tell it, I'm telling it first person. That's kind of... you guys need... I get a quick background. Before I was the big airline pilot.
I knew Max back when he was
starving.
Yeah. If you
guys,
can believe that.
More than one time, he and his family fed me when I had my last $5 in my wallet. So Ken and I... Ken, you were contracting to Stan, right?
Yeah.
I've been flight instructing. Got hired as a corporate pilot in a Cherokee 6. And Ken was hired to do some contracting work, or was he looking at buying your program?
No, well, you kind of shot that down. He wasn't. I had written a flight planning package for general aviation pilots because I didn't want to spend $100 buying one. So I put an ad in the magazine. And Max's boss called me up, and he was interested in it. And somehow we figured out that we were practically neighbors. So I went over to his office, and Max was his corporate pilot at the time, Mr. Big Shot corporate pilot over there.
It's one engine, 6 seats, 260 horsepower, no fear.
That's right, no fear. So I was showing it to Stanley, his boss. And Max was like, "Can it do IFR? Can it do this? Really?"
We got to give him a little background.
Okay, good.
Ken had designed, he had seen all these flight planning software programs, but they were all set up for instrument flying. He realized none of them had been optimized for the VFR pilot. Now, you could use instrument flight plans to file a VFR flight, but you couldn't fly at IFR. So he actually made, to my knowledge, the only flight planning software specifically designed for the visual flight rules pilot, the guy who doesn't fly in instruments. But since at this point I had to fly when Stan wanted in mostly any weather, I needed IFR capable stuff. Stan saw it was cheap, thought it'd be nice to buy, and I was like, Stanley, it's not IFR software. The beautiful VFR day, that's great, but
I did add IFR routes later on.
He did, and so, I don't forget. Well, you remember better than I do.
I did make it work.
Yep.
It was pretty cool.
But anyway, Ken and I had started hanging
Anyway.
out, and
So yeah, we so I did some programming work for Stan and got to know Max better. And Stan just I asked Stan if I could fly his plane, and he said, "Yeah, but my pilot has got to go with you." I said, "Fine with me." He was a CFI, so he could fly right seat, and I could log left seat time. So that's how Max and I got to know each other really well. And we've had a few flying adventures together. The one story that he mentioned a few minutes ago.
now we just gave you that background, so this was the rest of the story will make sense. But
Right. So I had a guy that I did a whole lot of programming work for. He owned a box manufacturing plant. Actually, he had 3 of them. And the big one was in Hagerstown, and the other one was in Connellsville.
this is going to get embarrassing for me in a minute.
Oh, this will be fun. A chance to embarrass Max.
Enjoy your moment.
Depends how I tell it.
Tell the truth.
So we, my boss, he was no stranger to flying general aviation airplanes at all. His partner had I think he had a 182. So he was flying all the time. So he was cool with it, but he wanted to bring his accountant with him, and his accountant was, let's just say, a little bit less enthusiastic about the idea of getting into a small airplane.
Now you're leaving out a salient point here.
Go ahead.
Ken said, "Hey Max, can you fly me to Connellsville?" Stan said we can
Oh.
borrow the plane. I'm like, sure. Ken never told me that corporate executives were going to be with us. I thought it was going me and him Sunday. Now the rest of the story.
Okay, now okay, all right, yeah. I left that little part out. So Max showed up in a dirty, wasn't dirty, but it definitely had holes in his T-shirt. And were you wearing shorts?
It was a We'll Fly for Food T-shirt.
Oh yeah. And did you have shorts on?
I had old Army BDU pants, flood
Okay.
water,
Okay.
and some ratty sneakers.
So he was really dressed up, and
You know the way I still dress.
yeah, true. Not a whole lot of different there.
Uh,
So we get out there, and
your criticisms of me are well founded.
like I said, the accountant's not real crazy about getting in his plane, but his boss is like, "Get in the plane, get in the plane."
But you got to understand, when they see the pilot walk up in a "We'll Fly for Food" T-shirt, grungy old Army battle dress uniform pants, flood water, green socks, and beat up old sneakers, this does not instill confidence.
Yeah, probably not a whole lot of confidence. But anyway, Vern was a good sport. He didn't care. I vouched for him, and Vern knew I could fly. I'd flown several times up to the Connellsville plant on my
So
own.
we fly him to Connellsville.
So we fly up to Connellsville.
Then we're getting ready to come back.
Well, there's a point that happened in between there. I had left the battery turned on, and it drained the battery, which is why
Now I'm
we
the
had-
instructor, so that's really on me. And even though he's in the left seat and I can't see the switches, I'm still supposed to check everything. So
I killed the battery, and we didn't notice that until we got back into
now,
the plane.
fortunately, this is a lead acid battery, so running it down doesn't really hurt it that like it would a NiCad. So,
Right.
Anyway,
So the guy there at the field brought his truck out, and he hooked up to the external jack, which didn't work.
turned out that the Cherokee 6 has an external jump jack, but it just old, so we had to go right onto the pull out everything out and go on the battery.
To get it up next to the hangar, we had to push it up there. And so my boss, the accountant, and Max, and one other guy, I think,
The guy working the ramp.
the guy on the ramp, pushed the plane. There had to be a pilot.
I had to sit in the airplane because.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I was in the plane, so we pushed the plane up to, and the guy who brought us up there, the sales manager from my boss, laughing his rear end off. Watching his boss push an airplane just seemed to have really.
You got to understand something. We're talking about a man who is the CEO,
owner
of a multi-million-dollar, multiple factory business, is out there in a suit and tie
pushing an airplane.
pushing an airplane. I mean, Vern wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty,
Nope.
though. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. So he pushed the plane up there, and the battery.
But the best part is yet to come.
Yeah, it gets better.
Remember what the T-shirt said. We'll fly for food.
Yes.
This is going to be important in a minute.
So we get the plane up there, and the battery's underneath the luggage compartment in the front. So we got to unscrew the floor. We took all the junk out, took the floor out, hooked up the battery. we're standing there, and I said, how long is this going to take? And the guy said, oh, you can fire it up right now if you want. So in the meantime, my boss is standing over there with Max.
That was Vern, right?
Vern.
Vern is the boss. He's the head honcho.
Standing over there with Max saying, I'd really like to get back to the airport by...
Was it dark or something? Or by
somewhere
7
around
p.m.
dark.
Or something like that?
Gave him a specific time.
6 p.m., yeah.
And he said, if you get me
But
back
then the
there,
magic words.
if you get me back there by that time, I'll buy you dinner.
Booyah! Fights on! Challenge accepted!
Obviously, Max is highly motivated by food, as we all have noticed. So Max
Told
immediately
you it was going to get embarrassing.
came over and said, get in the plane. we're starting this thing up.
Literally, as soon as he
Right
said
now.
that, I went, get in the plane.
So
This was like something out of a Quentin Tarantino film.
So I climb in the plane because I'm the pilot, and so he pulls the charging. No, we start the plane.
And we had to jump it. So the charger
We had to
stayed
jump it. We had to jump it.
I think had you started or did I start?
I started.
Yeah.
So I got the plane started, and while the engine is running, he gets Vern and the accountant in the back of the plane.
Don't forget the vice grip handle.
And there's vice grips attached to the handle on the inside with a sign says door can only be operated by the pilot.
This was a 1965 Cherokee 6, which had the internal door handles. And I'm not joking because I found one in a junkyard. They came off of like a Chevrolet. The exact same angle screw and Allen wrench and everything that tightened it down. But the little ratchets on the knob that they went on, that the Allen screw tightened, had just over 35 years had worn down. So I just plucked the thing off and put a vice grip on there so the inside hand... Now, there's 2 latches, a top one and a bottom, but it was just a vice grip. And this, again, not instilling confidence.
Not a whole lot seeing a vice grip on the door
But I'm
handle.
slamming everybody and locking everything up, chucking crap into the nose wheel, getting everything locked back down while the engine's idling, mind you, and getting everything disconnected. And Ken's sitting up there, thank God, standing on the brakes, which, by the way, only the pilot side had brakes.
And going through the pre-flight checklist, making sure that everything was was good to go. Max didn't even screw the floor down on the panel.
They were just over the battery was this little carpeted floor wooden piece that laid in. It just had 2 little screws that just a couple of rotations and gravity held it in place and had a ton of junk on top of it. It wasn't going anywhere.
No,
so I just dropped it in place, threw the crap on top, to close the door, locked it with the key, and we were out of there.
Jumped in the plane and said, go. Now, well, I wasn't quite done. He said, go.
Kick the tires, light the fires. First one in the air is leader. We'll brief on guard.
So we're taxing out to the end of the runway. I'm looking at...
By the way, I don't do that anymore now. That was then.
No.
Okay, just so we're clear.
Yeah, he really
Some
does...
Fed's going to watch this,
check. He does check the checklist from, now for work.
I did then, too. We just did it quickly.
Very quickly. So we got we're going down we're going down taxiing to the end of the runway, and I'm setting all the gauges and dial and looking at the chart, and the guy in the back not feeling too good about all this. The breaker pops on the alternator because it was charging and trying to feed the engine instruments. So we had to turn off
with a low battery.
With a low battery. The charge needle was pegged, and so we had to turn off. Planes come with 2 radios, so we had to turn off half the radios so we could lower the load as much as we could.
That happened in flight, though.
Well, yeah, we did that after we took off, yes, because it popped it on takeoff.
Yeah.
So we're up in the air and we're flying along, and it's dark outside, and Max turns over.
It's getting dark. Okay, it was dark.
Max turns over to me and says, you want to fly under the hood? Practice flying under the hood, which is what you do.
For instrument training, wear the hood so you can only see the instruments.
Right, so it's an instrument training thing. And I'm thinking...
I'm a double-eyed. I was an instrument instructor as well.
We covered that part. No, we didn't. Okay.
Oh, you said I was a CFI.
Yeah.
I was also an instrument instructor as well.
Yes. Very, very talented man here. So I'm thinking the guy in the back's already scared. So probably putting...
He sees Ken put the hood on. He's kind of like, what in the hell is going on? So I'm like, when he misbehaves, I discipline him.
Yeah. And what was funny is when they were back there, Vern was trying to work. And the accountant...
There is absolutely no point here, John. We're going to get to some other stuff in a minute.
The accountant's doing this, looking, at what we're doing up there. And Vern's like, you don't know what they're doing, so why you bother even looking up there?
Now, we landed, got to our destination without incident. The battery charged en route because I had dumped all the electric load, anything we didn't need. So we get there.
Oh, this gets better. Yeah.
Now, Vern, good to his word. It was a nice airport restaurant there in,
Yep.
Was that Frederick or Hagerstown? Which one was it?
Hagerstown.
Okay. And we're eating dinner. And mind you, I've still got on a Will Fly for Food t-shirt. I'm literally flying for my dinner.
Thank God he
Wow.
still had that T-shirt on.
I'm not even sure where that wants to go. Anyway, so not being one to squander opportunity, I am in my Will Fly for Food t-shirt after the experience you just saw, and my Floodwater BDU pants that I had from since I was in the Army, and my green socks, and my nasty sneakers, and my messed up hair. And I am trying to talk Vern into buying a corporate aircraft and hiring me as his pilot. This negotiation was not a negotiation. I think he got a good chuckle out of that. But to his credit, he bought me dinner. So, you know.
Yeah, well, the accountant guy was like, I don't think we really need an airplane.
Yeah, sure you do. Of course you do. You don't want to keep flying around in this collateral trap equipment, do you? And that was that story. So on to back to models.
Yeah, let's go back to models.
Okay, God, you never know where this freaking thing's going to go. Guys, I finished the MMU today, and it is not an entirely accurate kit. As you can, I've got the photo right here of Bruce over my shoulder anyway. A lot of things are missing, like the cameras and stuff. And what I came to realize was this kit came out the same year, 1984, the same year that Bruce did the untethered flight. But I think what happened was that the MMU was constantly in development. And since they needed a year or two lead time to get the kit ready, they went with an earlier estimated iteration, probably saw some training equipment stuff, used that as their basis. Because there are errors in the suit. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing could easily be corrected. I'm just not going to get that into it. I like the kit. I like the way it looks hanging in the Tarbus. I'm thrilled with it. My wife did a beautiful face paint. But the reality is that the kit is not terribly accurate. Even the decals are wrong, which didn't really matter because the decals are in pretty bad shape. So if you want to hyper-accurize that thing, it certainly makes a good basis for it. But if you want to make it accurate, you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you. And because of the 1/8 scale, there are a ton of gaps in it that are going to take a pound to putty. The MMU doesn't really go together all that well. I mean, it took a lot of pressing and bending and putty to get things into place. Kind of what some people might call sort of your typical Revell fit. It's the prototype. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. But one thing I did compare it to the photographs, and a lot of the stuff is right. So if you want to take the time to make a few accoutrements, or there might even be an accurizing kit out there, you can make it hyper accurate if you want to. I knew I was going to hang this thing up in the Tarbus, and I only wanted to do sort of a casual build on it, and I'm thrilled with it. I love the way it looks hanging up there. I'm happy with it. I'm digging it. It's rocking the vibe. And so I'm happy with it. But if you're a rivet counter, the kit's going to drive you a little nutty. And so that's all I have to say about that. Okay, also I did finish the Airfix Tornado. Well, I still got a little touch-up to do on it. A couple of bibs and bobs. But overall, it's pretty much done. I've got it pretty much on the shelf.
Tail keeps falling off.
Well, that's why right now as we speak, it is in the vise. You guys know that port side horizontal fin broke off, and I've got it in the vise right now, hardening with real glue. No more attempts to touch it with a little light, quick glue. The light touch. I went in heavy-handed with the Tamiya glue.
That ain't coming off this
That
time.
ain't coming off. And if that pops off, I'm just going to drill a hole in it and drill a fuselage, put a wire in there, and make, which is probably what I should have done. I don't think it's from the Gemini Spacewalker, the MMU, because they're different scales. I have, although Gene Cernan did attempt to go out and fly the early MMU, but he wasn't able to get into it because they didn't realize the importance of the big handholds and foot guards and everything. So he wound up drifting around. That almost ended. We were talking about this earlier today. That almost ended in disaster. It almost ended up like Leonov. For those who just real quick, the first spacewalk was done by a Russian, Alexei Leonov. who I think passed away not too long ago. Anyway, he was supposed to go out for about 5 minutes, but you know the old saying in aviation, never fly the A model of anything. You know, when you go out and do these things on your own, I mean, when you're the first one out to try something, you're going to find stuff no one thought of. Well, Leonov gets out, his suit balloons on him, the sleeves start sliding out where his fingers are coming out of the gloves, and he's like, holy crap. And they had this weird tube system because they didn't have an airlock in that tiny little capsule. Anyway, long story short.
Well, also, he couldn't move very well.
He couldn't move at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he could...
he was like a blow-up doll.
Yeah, the suit was way too... Boy, you just had to go there, didn't you? Anyway, but he's not wrong. The suit became great. Now anything I say is Jesus. The suit became very inflexible. Yeah, there you go. The suit became inflexible.
You're not gonna use stiff?
I was gonna use rigid, but anyway, the point being, Lanov couldn't move. He couldn't get back in. Now he was supposed to go back in feet first, and I hope someday you get to go to a museum and see one of these Russian capsules, because if you think, I mean, it is smaller than a Chevette inside. So anyway, Lanov tries to get back in and he can't. So he winds up reducing the suit pressure down to about 5 psi.
No, it was almost 3.
Almost 3, which is not enough. But the suit deflates to the point that he's able to move now, but he winds up having to go into this weird tube on the Vashkod head first, get in the capsule, get turned around. It was a nightmare. They
came close.
They came close to cutting him loose.
Came pretty close, yeah.
They didn't share any of this information with us, so when Ed White goes out for his spacewalk, which is about 20 minutes, but that Gemini has that huge hatch on it, and Ed's just floating around. He's not trying to do any work.
Right, and he's got that little handheld
that thing, the little jet gun ran out after a few squirts. He said that was a problem. He said that the biggest thing was it needed more fuel. That was the biggest. But anyway, he gets back in without any trouble because Gemini has that huge hatch and he has that comfortable suit and everything. And apparently the Americans had thought about, you got to keep the suit pressure down.
Well, the other big thing was the Russians wanted to keep the capsule pressured, which is why they had that.
That airlock thing.
The Gemini didn't care.
They depressed it so they could just pop the hatch. And so anyway, no one's sharing information in those days, obviously. So when the Americans go out and try to start working in space, not just floating around having a good time, all of a sudden, CERN and these other guys they're sweating, they're exerting themselves, their heart rates are increasing, because every time they try to pull on something, they push away from it, and their body weight swinging around. It was Buzz Aldrin who broke the code on that, and Buzz figured out that look, you got to have an anchor point. So Buzz comes up with and the engineering team, they come up with all these big foot restraints and large handholds and everything. And
they practiced in the water tank, too.
That's true. And Buzz also understood the importance of being very delicate. Don't push on things. Sorry.
Yeah, the fighter pilot mentality, I'm going to force this.
It didn't work. And so he winds up very easily without his heart rate going up. And Buzz has a super successful spacewalk and goes out to the Aegina and does all kinds of stuff. They actually brought that out in, I think, that Earth to the Moon series. But anyway, so they broke the code on that, and spacewalks have, been much safer and more productive ever since. But the MMU kind of reached the pinnacle of that. And people don't realize, if you saw the movie Gravity, where he's flying the thing around like a sports car, MMU doesn't move like that. There's little puffs of air. And you have to be very gentle with it. You only have a limited range. But it is the world's smallest spaceship.
Yep.
Because you really are on a one-man spaceship with that thing. And
you're totally self-contained, untethered.
I actually asked everybody on one of the recent videos, would you rather do a moonwalk or a space flight, MMU flight? And almost universal is I'd rather walk on the moon. And I have to agree I would too. But you got to admit, the MMU floating around that thing, I mean, that's pretty Johnny Quest.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, got my Mustang t-shirt. We're out driving a convertible earlier today. A couple of middle-aged guys riding around in a red convertible. What could be in Florida? What could be more cliche than that?
Watching all the girls turning their heads at us.
By the way, I imagine some of you folks, if you watch this channel, you probably watch Curious Droid. What was his name? Paul Schlito, I think. Anyway, CD did a video on spacesuits, and I didn't realize something. That's actually relevant to this. That is not a spacesuit. That is an EVA suit. any suit you wear going into space, including those simple pressure suits that they used in the early Mercury days and in Elon Musk's, those guys.
Yeah.
What was it? It was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, whatever they're calling that. Those cool slick suits they were wearing. Those are just pressure suits in case the spaceship loses environment. But that, as you see in the MMU and like you see on the Apollo moonwalks, those are EVA suits, much heavier duty, much more capable, radiation protection, a little bit of micrometeoroid protection, but I'm pretty sure micrometeoroid.
And the ISS, too.
Yeah. By the way, he talks about this. I didn't realize NASA only has 11 of these suits, and they spend a king's ransom keeping them working. You guys might want to check out, if you're at all interested in that kind of stuff, you might want to check out Curious Droid's video on that. So, all right, what else?
Corvettes rule? That's debatable. They are nice.
I'll let you fight that out with them. I ain't about to go down that rabbit hole. There's some Corvette folks. They can be right militant. By the way, guys, speaking of cars, I guess you guys heard John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard lost one of his imitation General Lees in Hurricane Ida. He's got a bunch of them. It is not one of the original show cars, I don't believe, but. Man, that just hurts to look at.
I guess that one tried to do a jump and didn't quite make it.
I have no idea what's going on here. But anyway, that's the picture they ran with it.
That makes you wonder how a car got that high up in a tree.
Well, God, how many freaking Chargers they wreck in that show? Anyway. No, Ken never got his instrument ticket.
No.
Slacker. So, let's see. What else do we have in here? Okay, real quick. Just put a Y down if you've ever built a model of the General Lee. I have not. And I do love that series of Chargers. You remember when we were at Gateway in Fort Lauderdale?
What?
My FO with the General Lee.
Oh, yeah. He got to sit in one.
Oh, okay. We were at, it's Gateway is the name of it, right? Gateway?
The name of the store?
The business, the place, yeah.
I'm
but it's a
not
series.
sure.
There's a company, I think it's called Gateway, that they sell vintage cars, but there's a bunch of them around the country, like one in every major city. And we was Lauderdale, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Lauderdale. And Ken lives down there, so he came and picked up. Well, my FO, who's captain now, is from Tennessee, so he's a huge Dukes of Hazzard fan. And anyway, I wanted to look because I heard they had a GTO, and they had one of my dream cars, a convertible 67 or 66 GTO. You remember the car, the orange goat?
I think it was a 67.
The one, that's why I built that model of the convertible. It's called, anyway, this thing, they wanted $40,000 for it, and of course, yeah,
He just couldn't quite bring himself to do that. He wanted to. He came close, and I was kind of nudging him a little bit.
Yeah, but car, Max. I don't. Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy with what I got.
He restrained himself.
But anyway, the point I'm driving at is they also had a replica of the General Lee. I mean, with the horn and everything. Maffo saw that. He asked if he could sit in it. I'm like, yeah, sure. So he's in there. He's hitting the horn. He is having the time of his life.
You took some pictures of him, too.
I did. I got buried somewhere in my old computer. My God, I have never seen a person in such a happy place.
He smiled for the whole rest of the day.
A whole bunch of folks have built it. Look at all the yeses and everything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 3.
Yeah.
You really like that thing.
And, it's funny. Everyone loves Chargers. They love the show. Yeah, those people killed more Chargers than any other television show, including Burn Notice.
They had a lot of airtime in those cars, too.
By that,
Flight
you mean...
time.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you mean airtime like on air, or airtime as in the air?
Yeah, air.
Yeah, you can sit there and watch the frames crush on landing, and I'm kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's not the car that's in the next scene zipping down the highway at 100.
No.
But...
At least they didn't have the doors welded.
You see, that's like when I did the diorama with the two kits. Mm-hmm. I got them there getting beat up, driving through bushes, scratches on them. Largely just to cover up my blemishes. But everybody, they make these perfectly beautiful model cars, which are fantastic. But I'm like, General Lee, man. No one ever makes a diorama of the General Lee with the frame bent.
Remember the 4-wheel version that they had with the wheels really tall off the ground.
Oh, the 4-wheel drive version.
Yeah, with the wheels really extended so they could go out in the dirt. I thought that was different.
Yeah. Uh-oh. The car comments, the gauntlet has hit the floor on the car comments.
Uh-oh. Viper kicks Corvette Mustang butt.
Hey, I got a 6-cylinder, man. I'm just driving that thing as an old man geezer convertible. Although we did jump in one with a Boss because Monica wanted to see if it was comfortable.
Yeah.
And fired up. I'm like, whoa. And straight shift, I was like, man, if I'd gotten the hard top there with the straight shift and the Bob would have had that thing at the track. My brother-in-law drives in those, takes him out of the track and does that whole racing thing there. Okay, what else have we got, Ken? Let's see.
Oh, I saw a comment earlier. Somebody wanted to know what I built the airplane out of. It's a material called PLA, which is polylactic acid.
That sounds like an old man illness. I got polylactic acid, Dad. It's causing my ulcer to flare.
Just ignore it.
Oh, come on, that was funny.
For an old man, I guess it's kind of funny.
You're older than I am. Probably live longer, but...
I don't know how they make it, whether it's made out of the stuff they pull out of milk, lactic acid. But it has...
I'm never going to look at milk the same after you said that.
Yeah, it has a melting temperature of between 190 to 230 degrees Celsius.
Somehow in my mind, I'm seeing Kylo Ren with a glass of milk going, I will pull the lactic acid right out of you. Remember the interrogation scene? No, never mind. And in other news, thank you, Gary. I want to thank everyone for the happy wishes on my 60th. We've got the balloons from the party right here. Those things have gone free about 3 times in this bedroom.
He keeps kicking them and they knock loose and they start floating away. At least we don't have the fan on. That would be really disastrous.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, they'd be sitting there doing this the whole time.
Yep.
Oh, thank you, John. Have you guys ever milked cows? Funny you should mention that. When I was like in the 2nd grade, so I was like 7 years, he asked if we ever milked cows.
Yeah, I know, but why would we have ever milked
Well,
cows?
we brought up lactic acid and milk. I mean,
we're
dude,
really,
everything's fair game on this live
we're
stream.
really going on a tangent now, aren't we?
We went to a dairy farm and they were hooking the automatic milkers up to the cows, and I was just kind of like, man, I was 7 years old and I knew that was just wrong. I can't get out of here to get another drink.
You're stuck, dude. What's the bottle of water sitting there for?
You got a glass of water right there.
Yeah, I'm fine, but that... Anyway.
Because I'm doing most of the talking, so my throat dries out. So I keep some water handy.
Okay.
What do you think the water was for?
You said you had to go get water and there's water.
No, the kind of drink I was talking about was not water.
Oh, is that what I smelled earlier?
Judgy much?
You weren't kidding when you said, this isn't just water.
Duh! He's been known me 35 years. And
What are you looking for now?
see if I can escape and
Can you
get a replenish my supply.
Where is the supply? I'll go get it.
Like you would have clue 1, what to put in the glass or how much.
I'm just going to bring the bottle.
Oh, yeah, that's what I need on live stream. Actually, with the way this thing's gat back there, I can get back in a minute. I'll go refreshing myself in a minute.
He'll survive a few minutes without something
please.
to
I
drink.
have a cocktail 2 times a week, usually on the same night. And that's usually here.
Well, this is followed by 3 beers he had over at his birthday.
Oh, rat me out, you snitch. That was 4 hours ago.
Throttle the bottle, man.
I'm not flying for a week.
You're the one that made the comment when we got out of the car. Said, "Hey, I could go fly now if I wanted to."
When the hell did I say that?
You don't remember?
No.
You said it's been long enough. I could fly now if I want to. I'm fine.
I did not say that.
See, he's drunk.
I am not. Eyes closed.
No, he didn't really say that. I'm just making that up.
Thank you. You know, the feds are watching this. I'm sure there's some FA. Oh, I'm going to give me an airline. I'm going to watch you. Trains.
Those are good things. Did you read the letter?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I think there was a note here I wanted to make about something somebody had sent me. Oh, yes. I was chatting with Steve earlier today, Steve M, and I didn't realize this, but there are some molds that were destroyed. This is model stuff.
No, I'm laughing at the comment.
Oh, you read them. I get so far
We're
behind.
doing a Laurel and Hardy episode.
Well, I'm obviously the fat one. So anyway, that makes you the dimwit.
Apparently, this is my first and last show.
You don't get off the hook that easy. So I just realized I'm flashing all of my mental doctor's appointments on the back of this piece of paper. So I was talking with Steve, and I didn't realize this, but you guys remember the nuclear power plant that was made, the Westinghouse, the model of the Westinghouse nuclear power plant. I got this information when I was doing the putting together information for the educational models, like the Transparent Man and all that stuff. Well, that came up to the nuclear power plant came up in that. And the molds for that, I always thought, these things are... I've seen them... I've heard of people getting $3,000 for one of those kits that was complete, and I've heard of people getting them as cheap as $300. So I guess it's worth whatever you can get for it. Wow. Well, no, let me rephrase that. I saw a bid for $300, but it may not have met reserve, so I could be wrong on that. But I saw a few of them on eBay at one point.
That's some serious cash for a model.
Yeah, but it's the rarity. Anything when it's rare. And anyway, the power plant model apparently never sold very well. The Invisible Man and the Invisible Frog and a few of the others did really well. By the way, I was amazed how many times those molds have changed hands. There were so many companies. I'm going to get into that in the video when I get it done. But there were apparently very few of these companies other than Renwall. Actually, Renwall did originate the Invisible Man, Invisible Woman kits. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them that were later done by Lindbergh and these others were actually, they were like the third owner of the molds or the third company to market it. Sometimes the companies don't let go of the molds. They just shoot them for another company. But I imagine a company like Lindbergh probably bought them outright. Anyway, what I didn't realize was that the molds for the Slant 6 engine, Steve told me this, the molds for the Slant 6 engine and the nuclear power plant were destroyed. Now, when the molds are destroyed, the kit price skyrockets. There's no chance of a repop, not unless somebody completely re-engineers the molds.
Not likely.
And even then, it's not a true repop because they're new molds at that point. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Well, that kind of brings up a segue.
Oh, John's here. Hey, John. Fast Sports. I told you.
Oh, yeah. The Visible V8 that they came out with, they also came out with a car chassis.
Well, Visible V8 is still in production. Right. Uh-huh.
Then they came out with a model car chassis that the Visible V8 fit into.
I remember reading about that. I've never seen one.
And
except
the car
in pictures.
chassis had a visible manual 3-speed transmission with reverse that would hook into the back of the Visible V8 engine. So you had a little shifter on there. It was pretty cool. And
somebody needs to make the V8 body to go, the body of a car to go on it.
Well, the idea being it was educational.
Yeah.
And those
Excellent.
kits are very rare as well. They're very hard to get, and quite often you'll see an incomplete kit for sale. People will buy that, take out the missing parts that they need for their kit, and then resell the rest of it. Because that's how hard it is to find one of these complete kits.
And thus, why when you have one that's completely intact, it's worth $3,000.
Yes.
Not to give anybody any bad ideas, but I'm convinced that if you could find a nice condition boxed one.
Boxed one what?
Of like the kits that are out of production, like the nuclear power plant or the Slant 6. Mm-hmm. And you could pile all the parts in there from multiple Frankenstein kits, until you had all the parts in there. Mm-hmm. Shrink it, and well, they didn't sell them back in those days, but to bag them, and you could probably fraud somebody out of some money. I'm sure that kit model fraud is a real. You guys think kit model fraud is a real thing? Because I'll bet you it is.
I do too.
Anything where there's money attached, somebody will find a way to counterfeit it. Well, the Allison engine is still in production. Atlantis makes it, and I thought about picking one up. I actually watched a couple of videos on them. Oh, by the way, let me see. I don't know if I downloaded the picture or not, but no, I didn't. I dragged out the Matador and Terra Cruiser and the Vanguard today because finishing off the kits I had cleared my desk, and I'm gonna start, because I have no idea how much time I'm going to have to commit. I'm going to start working on the Cold War missile build, which is going to be aired on Halloween. That is the one where we're going to use the Godzilla meter. And if you guys don't remember that, I can run and grab that real quick. Nice thing about this little education here is I can go grab stuff in real time while we're online. Okay, image.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to bother to name it because I'm going to grab it. And I just happen to remember where I put that because, let's see, that is...
By the way, I saw some of the other comments. Some people said they didn't know they made a chassis, and somebody else said they made a combination. The reason I know about it is because my parents gave me one when I was a kid, and I thought
you had that kit, the chassis kit.
The chassis kit.
That's rare as hen's teeth today.
I have no idea what happened to it. Disappeared years ago. But yeah, I would love to have had that thing now. It had the steering wheel with the steering mechanism to show how the steering wheel worked, because the wheels actually turned as well, and it had a differential. I learned how a differential worked from that model. I never knew before.
I only recently learned how differential worked when I was getting to RC tanks and everything, and I was like, I saw some of the RC tanks these guys had built with real transmissions and differentials. One guy used a drill motor to run the differential, and I was like, holy crap, that's complex. I had not. And somebody, the wheels got to move it. I never thought about it. I'm like, man, differentials, once you wrap your head around it, you realize how impressive that engineering is.
Yeah, to get all that stuff to work right. Yeah.
I know you guys have probably mostly seen that, but this is the Godzilla meter that when we make the Cold War missile build, the efficacy of each missile will be rated on the Godzilla meter.
I felt that. Did something happen?
Did something happen? Whew, that tickles. Hey, I felt that. You have my attention. Oh, hell no. Time to just crush Tokyo. He gets knocked down. Ow, that hurt. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. And Deadzilla. Those are the different ratings. The Vanguard will be Did Something Happen, and the Matador that I'm building will probably be That Tickles, unless it has a nuke, in which case it's You Have My Attention. But that is how the firepower, the impact of the various missiles will be judged, because here at Maxsmodels we know how to have fun.
The Beaumark had a nuclear tip.
Mm-hmm. And it will be rated accordingly.
That might get his attention.
I'm sure it would. Again, they're asking how the Beaumark's coming.
Not very far yet. I've been working on my plastic airplane, so it will be done by Halloween. Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Just see to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It'll be done. It'll be done.
Because I like that kit. You better do a good job.
I know. I love that missile. That thing is just so cool.
Okay. I am going to go refresh my tea.
Yeah, let's call
my
it tea.
Not tea.
Your T plus.
While you chat and you guys chat amongst yourself, I'll be right back.
Are you going to leave them with me?
Yeah, besides I need to take you know what I need to do. Just talk to them.
Be nice, guys.
This is like tell them about the XB70 ejection seat. I'm doing the XB70 ejection seat thing. It had to go backward. That's why they lost one of the pilots on the ejection of the XB70 when the F-104 collided with it.
It didn't work.
Yeah, because it had to slide backwards first.
Yeah, it was
The
rather...
plane didn't go out of control right away either.
No, it didn't. I thought... I was under the impression that it went into a flat spin.
It's like this. I'm stuck, I can't get out.
And because of that really long fuselage, there would be a lot of force out of the end. But that's not what happened. I saw a video on YouTube recently about this. I thought it was really interesting. Basically, what happened was they were all flying in a V formation with the XB70 in the front, an F4 on the left-hand side, and an F105 on the right. And there was two other aircraft on the outside of that too, but I don't remember what they were. They're immaterial to the story. So they're flying in formation. This is supposed to be a promotion thing for GE. All the aircraft had GE engines in them, and they were flying out there for about an hour, and then a B-58 Hustler decided it wanted to join the formation, and everybody but the guy in the 105 had visual on this thing, but he didn't. So as he was trying to find this thing, he started drifting slightly over towards the XB-70, and he got underneath the wingtip, and the vortex flipped him around and threw him backwards over top of the XB-70, and it took the rudders off, and then the aerodynamic forces destroyed the F-105. The XB went on for about 11 seconds after that with no problems, and then it started rolling over uncontrollably, and eventually it went inverted. And at that point, they decided to exit the aircraft. Now, the XB-70 has a rather strange and complex ejection system because of the way the cockpit is built. The seat had to lay back and then went up a ramp to, I guess, to avoid the overhead instrumentation or something like that. And in the process of doing that, there's two doors that would clamp. One from the top would come down, and another one would come up from underneath to encase the pilot, because injecting out into Mach Plus slipstream could be rather unpleasant. So he had his own like little cocoon, and then it would shoot him out. The pilot didn't get out. The co-pilot did get out, and there was also an inflatable bag that was supposed to inflate at the bottom of the seat so that when it hit the ground, it would cushion it. Well, that didn't work. When he hit the ground, he hit it so hard that his feet left imprints on the bottom sheet of the ejection seat, and it messed up his back. And I don't think he ever flew again. I'm not sure about that, but it really messed up his back. So I thought the XB-70 was a really interesting aircraft. Some people had speculated that that was supposed to be the nuclear bomber platform. From what I've read, though, that I don't think that's the case. That might have been just rumor. Maybe somebody out there knows otherwise. Okay?
I'm good. I have my glass of tea.
Yeah, we'll call it T. We'll go with that. Some of my...
Yeah, the XB-70 is one of the most beautiful airplanes. It and the Concorde. Okay. If you're a car guy, car. If you're an airplane guy, airplane. If you're an armor guy, armor. What is the most beautiful car, the most beautiful airplane, and the most beautiful tank ever made? Just put your comments below.
That's a good question. What's your
I
favorite?
think the XB-70 very well may take it as the most beautiful airplane, although the Concorde would be the only thing that come close to it.
The Concorde is very sexy.
I mean, some airplanes are so ugly, they're beautiful, like the Corsair, you know? I mean, the Corsair looks like a tough guy that sits in the back of an alley in the dark, chewing on a cigar, waiting for someone to come piss him off. But the XB-70, I mean, even on the ground with that long stork-like gear is elegant, but so is the Concorde.
That thing had 6 huge engines in it, and
and they only made 18 of those engines in total.
When they did the
Or 16.
The engine test on the ground, they actually had to put baffles over the back of the engine to quiet the engines down because they made so much noise that it would disturb people who lived around the airport from miles around.
Orange Tabby says the Yag Panther's most beautiful tank. I think the Panthers actually want to get the slope, but the Tiger II also. Those are two of the most beautiful tanks. American tanks are extremely utilitarian, like Russian tanks. They're rarely things of beauty. The sloping lines of the Tiger II and the Panther, to me, are just... As aircraft's XB-70 car, boy, that's a tough one. Some of those concept cars are wicked.
What about the one that became the Batmobile?
Okay, that's cool. Someone was telling me recently, though, that Adam West, I think, drove like absolute crap.
But it looked good.
But it was a concept car. That's true. Yeah, but that's true. I did say most beautiful looking. Gosh, I'm going to be honest. I think it's hard to get past the mid-60s GTO, but that's my American muscle car prejudice. My
favorite car is the Lamborghini. Some people count...
Which one? The Murcielago? The Countach?
The Countach.
Okay.
I think that's how they pronounce it. The Countach.
The Lincoln Ventura, that's the one you're thinking of, yeah.
That's just a sexy car.
The Vespa? Okay, I did not see that one coming.
A Vespa?
A Vespa. It's a German armored vehicle.
Oh, we're talking about a tank. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I asked tank, plane, and engine. The F-106, you know what, Anshelek, the F-106 is my favorite Century Series airplane. I got 5 models of them built. I love that airplane. The Delta Wing, the F-106. The Sexy 6. Oh, God, that airplane is freaking beautiful.
I'd have to say the Rainbow.
Rainbow's a gorgeous airplane.
The XF-12.
It's certainly one of the most gorgeous prop jobs.
That is one sexy looking airplane.
And Mike Machat would agree with you, I'm sure.
If any,
The Trabant? Okay, come on. That's just a joke. The Trebby? The Trabant?
what's a Trabant?
It's a little East German car.
Oh.
It's
Okay.
kind of like a Fiat.
You got weird tastes.
Yep. Now, Fast Sports, John is saying Lambos he has driven a lot of these cars. He's driven Bugattis, a lot of them. He's the one that makes the resin. Well, John, those are Porsches you make, right? Beautiful, too. Apparently, everybody's got them.
The older Countach.
And
I saw.
I do have a soft spot for the Pantera. I saw one when I was a kid and fell in love with that thing.
A friend of mine bought one.
Really?
Yeah, we lived.
That would have been I'd have made a friend out of him.
We lived in D.C. at the time, and it was in Tennessee. And so he asked me if he wanted to go with him to go get the car. So we drove all the way down there, rented a trailer, and because he didn't.
Do I want to go with you to get a Pantera? Do I have to pay? Because I will.
I think it even had the Ford engine.
John does a 356 Porsches.
It had the Ford engine. The begins with a W. The Winchester engine. I probably got that totally
One thing I
wrong.
love about this channel is when you ask a question, you wait about 8 seconds and the answer pops up. It's like crowdsourcing.
The F-105. That's a sexy plane.
It is. It's a beautiful machine. Republic. That's probably the most beautiful thing Republic put out. See, that's like the Thunderbolt. Republic made the Thunderbolt. It's one of those airplanes so ugly it's beautiful. But my brother was always like, because I always used to say I'd rather fly a Thunderbolt than a Mustang. Why would you rather fly a Thunderbolt than a Mustang? No.
I had read
The
that.
Cornfield Bomber is the one that landed itself when the pilot ejected. It's the one that's on display in the Air Force Museum. It went back in service. It made a perfect belly landing. And the sheriff got out there. The engine was going. Nobody knew what to do. And they just basically ran out of fuel. Or so goes the story. That is Richard Travis Whitcomb's area rule fuselage, where the fuselage gets narrower as the wing gets thicker, so that from the front of the aircraft, aerodynamically, it sees a constant cross section.
Right.
That was why the F-102 had trouble getting past, and they put the blisters on it later.
The P-47D with the bubble top.
Now, there were also straightback 47Ds.
D? Really?
Yeah. The first first P-47Ds were Razorbacks. P-47D did not mean it was a bubble top. It had to do with the engine and some of the systems that were on board internally. It was while the D was in production, the bubble top went into effect. They wound up having a little bit of a lateral stability problem, so the end model put a little spine in front of the fin to help stabilize it.
I remember that, yeah.
That's the same problem they had with the P-51. When they went from the Razorbacks to the bubbles, they had to increase the tail size, put a fillet. That's why you'll notice a P-51A and B, the tail just curves right into, the fuselage curves right into the tail, but in the D, there's that angle, there's that fillet. It had to replace some of that missing fuselage that stabilized the airplane, which was worth it for that Omnivision they had. But even according to the Brits, who came up with that bubble Malcolm hood for the B model to get rid of that framed canopy. Even the guy said even that bubble Malcolm hood was really all you needed. You could turn around and see behind you enough, So visibility is critical if you're a fighter pilot.
Lose sight, lose the fight.
There, John points out there were German pilots talked about running out of ammo trying to shoot down Thunderbolts. Of course, one of the problems the Germans had, especially the Me-262, was those big gargantuan 30mm cannons also had a slow rate of fire. So you're ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and you may only score 1 or 2 hits. Although they later came out with rockets. Man, they came out, you got to give them credit. Luftwaffe was not afraid to experiment with some weird weapons. Rearward firing flamethrowers, aerial rockets, just all kinds. Are you guys familiar when the Air Force tried to shoot down a Navy Hellcat drone that went rogue after the war? Actually, it was in the 50s. And the debacle, I think the history guy actually covered it. Lance Geiger, the history guy. I'm sure most of you guys have seen the history guy, the bow tie history guy. Anyway, a F6 F5N, I think, which was a late model of the Hellcat. It breaks my heart, but a lot of these old warbirds get turned into drones and get shot down. So this Hellcat is big orange Hellcat is being flown by remote control, and it goes rogue and flies off. And like, oh my God, this thing might crash into a city. We got to go shoot the thing down. So they sent out a couple of, I think they were F-89 Scorpions, which had the big Mickey Mouse missiles and the big pods on the wingtips. Anyway, the Air Force sent a couple of jets out. They fired all their missiles. They did not hit the damn thing once. And in the end, it ran out of gas and crashed. And I mean, they literally could not the entire U.S. Air Force could not bring down a single drone flying in a straight line, painted bright orange.
With a propeller.
I spoke. Now, you guys, I've already confessed my love affair with the F-106. Well, they got turned into QF-106 drones. And one of my coworkers, who was a retired Air Force and Air National Guard pilot, said, "Oh yeah, I've shot down 2 of them." I was like, never speak to me again, you heretic. You infidel. Because it breaks my heart. And they put flares on the wingtips. And I'm like, that's kind of cheating, isn't it?
Just a little bit.
Well, we don't want to shoot down the wrong airplane. I'm like, yeah, give that heat seeker something to lock onto. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, you don't want to risk shooting down the wrong airplane. I knew a guy whose job was to fly the Air Force's only Dash 8 around the Gulf of Mexico to make sure there were when they were going to do live fires. And he had a SLAR pod on a side-looking, I think it was SLAR pod, a side-looking radar, that his sole job was to make sure the impact area was clear of boats and airplanes and everything before they went out and started shooting live ordnance. It wouldn't be impossible, I suppose, to, some little pilot come straying through and eat a missile by mistake. So, to their credit, the Air Force is very careful about those things.
Yeah, that would be kind of bad press. Air Force shoots down private pilot. That would not go over.
That actually kind of did happen about 30 years ago. The Phantom that hit the Baron.
Yes, in IFR conditions.
Yeah, what happened is a Baron, I think it was coming in from the Bahamas, I believe.
Yeah.
But he didn't file a flight plan. There were 6 people on the Baron. And this story does not end well. A Phantom was sent up to investigate, but the weather was crappy. Now, the radar on the Phantom in those days had a 1,500-foot lockout. It only, inside 1,500 feet, the radar didn't work. So it would lock out whatever it saw. The Phantom, which is slowed up, is trying to do an intercept on this guy to identify what it is. And they're assuming possibly a drug runner, maybe, but you never know. I mean, the world's a dangerous place, even back, in the 70s and 80s. I mean, actually, more like 40 years ago, I think. I think it was in the 70s, wasn't it?
It was. I don't remember what year.
Anyway,
it was a long time ago.
The Phantom crew, and to their credit, they didn't do anything wrong. They're coming up behind the target. They're sweeping on the radar. They got a clean paint. But at, I forget it's 1,500 feet or 500 feet, but unless it was 1,500 feet, the radar locked out. So the Phantom lost his picture. So and he was closing on it because he's flying a freaking Phantom. Okay. So to his credit, he breaks left to avoid the target. He can't see it on radar anymore. What he didn't know was that, as the fates would have it, at that time, the Baron made a left turn also, and the Phantom went right through it. And it cut that thing in half from tail to nose.
Yep.
The Phantom actually came home. Damaged, but it came home. Mm-hmm. But sadly, no one on the Baron survived.
Yeah, there was a big stink about that.
You think?
Yeah, a lot of people were accusing the Air Force of shooting down civilian airplanes.
And they actually never fired a shot, but Phantom makes a right impressive missile.
Or slicer.
Yeah, God. And the people that were involved in that didn't do anything wrong. I mean, the crew didn't do anything wrong, but they've got to...
They got to feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, you got to live with that. So, on a happier note, Goblin, I guess you're talking about the F-117. I got one of those big testers kits in there of an F-117. I got for $20 at the Hobby Lobby. That was like an estate sale. and I want to kit bash it into some kind of Star Wars type ship. And here's the problem with kit bashing. I don't know about you guys. I have a problem cutting up a perfectly intact model. So I want to hear how you feel about that.
Why do they call planes Wild Weasel? I always thought Wild Weasel.
Wild Weasel is the mission. Yeah, that's because you have to turn like a wild weasel because you go up and deliberately attract missiles, and then you have to turn like a wild weasel to get away from them.
Yeah, but he's saying,
you also have to shoot back at them.
Well, he also said he called multiple planes Wild Weasel.
Well, the Wild Weasel, was the mission. The F-106G, I think, was the one. I got a model one. Actually, that's one of the models my brother Steven built that survived our childhood. It's on the shelf. It's on the shelf right now.
Oh, cool.
The Wild Weasel is the 2-seat version of the F-105. Wild Weasel is the mission. It was the F-105. They may have had F-100s, but I think they were calling them Misties back then. But the Wild Weasel did the mission. The F-106G did the mission. Then it was replaced by an F-4. I think that mission's done by an F-16 now, but I'm not sure. But if you ever saw the movie Flight of the Intruder, where he talks about the Iron Hand mission, which is what the Navy called it, I think. That is where they go at what's called an anti-radiation missile. It literally homes in on a radar. They go up and deliberately get swept by enemy radar. They lock that data into the missile to fire the missile. But in the meantime, they're being shot at. And a lot of times they would not be able to track the missile all the way to the target because the enemy's shooting back at them and they have to maneuver. But the missile was designed to be able to remember where the radar was at.
Well, the initial missiles were not. And the enemy quickly learned that if they turned the radar off when they shot the missile,
he's talking about the harm missile.
But then we got smart and we said, all right, fine. You turn the radar off, we're still going to know where you're at.
It was the F-100s that did it first. And I don't know if they called it Wild Weasel back then, but...
They used F-111? I wouldn't think that plane would be maneuverable enough to be Wild Weasel.
Well, again, Wild Weasel's the mission, and you can have any airplane do it.
Right, but the idea is you want to use one that's going to be successful and come back.
Well, the F-111 had its problems, to be sure, but...
it was fast.
Oh, God, they used the A4 before the A6. That had to be a handful. The EF-111. Well, now, that was the Raven. That was more of a jammer, wasn't it? I don't know if that was actually... maybe it did. I mean, they're not exactly going to broadcast all their capabilities.
Well, yeah, they did use F-111s as jammers later on.
That actually became its primary mission. I think the Ravens were the last ones to be retired from the U.S. Air Force, and the Aussies held on to F-111s forever. I actually know a guy that worked in the wing. There was an entire section of the Air Force that was dedicated just to the wing boxes on those things, but you figure it's a swing wing airplane. And it's a critical asset, so that kind of made sense. You don't think about it, but when these things are made, when anything is manufactured, whether it be a car, a ship, a plane, when anything is manufactured, there's this massive infrastructure around it that has to be set up. Mm-hmm. Once that's set up and the product run is made, then you have the maintenance issues. But just like Curious Droid was talking about with the EVA suits, a lot of those companies are gone now. So when they have to sometimes they have to get into parts fabrication or something, or find a vendor who can set up to fix one or two suits or one or two airplanes or a half dozen airframes. This is not a small undertaking.
Right. That's why you end up with $700 hammers. Or something similar to that. Because they're very specific. And that's the way the Army or
Ken, thanks for joining. Kenneth, there's another Ken. Ken, you should see some of his builds. I got some pictures of him.
Oh, yeah.
Kwiatkowski, he does beautiful. He's been model building forever. He's actually been in the business, and fantastic work. Kenneth, I'm glad you got to join us, buddy. Take care. Have a good night.
Yeah, it was a jammer. Yeah, it became
involved the Route Package 6. Yeah, Route Pack 6. You ever read Thud Ridge?
Yep.
Oh, that book pissed me off.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's don't go there.
Flown Huns.
Yeah, it's F-100. Hun 100.
Yeah, Huns.
And
yeah,
if you can fly the F-100 and not hurt yourself, you're doing pretty good right there. You guys have probably all seen the famous footage of the F-100 doing this, what they call the saber dance, and it crashes. And the pilot survived the initial crash but died shortly thereafter. I actually worked with Rich Fisher, who was in that unit, knew that guy. And he talked to it. You appreciate this. He retired out of the Maryland Air Guard, flying F-16s and I think eventually A-10s. But anyway, he told me about the whole thing. And that guy was actually diverted from another airfield. And he was landing and he saw something happened on there. They were doing, and they just happened to be a film crew out there doing a documentary for the Air Force. So that's why there's such good footage of it. Well, what happened, he was actually trying to do a go around and he slapped the burner too quick down at low airspeed, and that's when it started to saber dance.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. That if you do that, you actually end
You're
up
trying to go, yeah.
For a few
You're
seconds.
riding the flame, yeah.
You actually end up with less thrust as the afterburner starts to kick in, and you have to be careful. I've heard this, that you have to be very careful how quickly you push that in, and if you slow and low, you're in deep yogurt.
Yeah, as production ceased on the F-22, the machinery was destroyed. SR-71 machinery was destroyed also. Johnson insisted it all be destroyed.
Why did they destroy the F-22 machinery?
Is that probably so no one could make the stuff? I don't know.
I guess it was probably...
Well, why did they destroy the model companies?
I guess it was a procurement issue because they didn't want to make any more 22s and they wanted to make 35s.
You never know what's going on.
I'm guessing.
But think about this. It's like when Abe Shikes at Aurora went through and just started picking molds to have them destroyed because he didn't want to be the figure guy anymore. He wanted to be in the games and stuff. He was forcing. It was an internal politics thing, I suppose.
Probably.
But the whole idea of going in and destroying perfectly good molds, you don't want to sell them to somebody else because they could go on. Yeah, and I'm like, dude, wrap them up and put them in a vault somewhere. You don't destroy them.
Yeah, Max has something against that.
Yeah, it's like destroying fine art. Why not just burn a painting by Da Vinci?
The Gen 6
is 3D printed.
What's Gen 6? Gen 6 of what?
He may mean Generation 6 fighters or something, or destroyed an arrow. The arrow. All the Canadians are chiming in. You mentioned destroying stuff. What happened to the CF-105 Arrow is a bloody freaking crime.
It is. And that was...
I have learned if you want to start a bar fight in Canada, and back me up on this, Canadians, if you want to start a bar fight in Canada, just go into a bar, have a couple of drinks, and go, to Diefenbaker! Okay, let's watch the comment stream and see what happens. We don't get political here, but that's not... I don't consider that politics.
Yeah. Well, actually, coincidentally,
I'm sure there are a couple of Canadians right now that are sharpening up their hockey sticks, kind of getting plane tickets to Florida.
from the little I've read about the Beaumark was partially responsible for the Arrow. They
No. Well, yes and no. Let me elaborate.
Okay, you obviously know more about that than
Well,
I
I don't say I know more, but okay. How can I put this and cause the most controversy?
because we never want to do that.
Yeah. So, I'm going to give you my theory. The orange tabby. Yeah, the whole way turned out.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you caught the right. You're just going to switch two letters around and the truth is told. I don't think I'm going to be allowed back into Canada anytime soon. But anyway,
Nope.
partly just because I call it Canada,
Well, they're saying nope.
Anyway, all right. I've harped on this before, and I shall harp again. I believe the death knell of the magnificent, world-beating CF-105 Arrow, which is just shows how a small but capable country like Canada can literally, and I hate to paraphrase Obama, but it's true, literally punch above their weight. Okay? They had a fraction of the aerospace infrastructure we had, and they came out with a better airplane. All right?
Well, when you leave people alone you give them specs and you leave them alone. Say,
actually,
hey,
it was more like lighting a fire under them. But here's the thing. I believe the death knell of the Arrow came the minute the United States Air Force showed interest in it. The Air Force wanted to buy it.
I didn't know that.
No, well, fighter pilots in the U.S. Air Force wanted to buy it.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
you know,
different.
the people actually have to go fight in the bloody thing.
Yes, that's different.
The minute the U.S. Air Force fighter community and you got to remember this is the height of the Cold War. The
Right.
minute the fighter community and the air defense community said, "That's the plane for us," you can bet that McDonnell Douglas and Convair and Grumman and Boeing, all of them, were on the phone to every senator that they owned to crush that thing, kill that in the crib. And believe me, I had to stop the words I really wanted to use because this is a family channel.
Yes.
So they got on the horn, and a lot of pressure was laid on Ike to stop that thing. So Ike goes to Diefenbaker and says, "You know what? You're going to spend all this money developing this when we have the Beaumark up and running."
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he twists Diefenbaker's arm to go on the cheaper route, buy American aircraft that are already in production, get the Beaumark for that defense. And you do realize that the only country that ever had any casualties as a result of the Beaumark was the United States when that one caught fire. And
I didn't know anybody got killed.
no, but some people inhaled some nasty stuff, and it's still radioactive to this day.
Yes, it is.
So I shouldn't say casualties, I should say the only people to be harmed. The Beaumark, although I absolutely love the idea and the program, to think that they were doing this back when cars had tail fins, I mean, you cannot not love that.
And the computer technology of the day, I'm a programmer, so I work with this stuff all the time. To do what they had to do with the technology that they had at the day was just amazing.
Oh, don't get me started on the Sage system. That thing was amazing.
Yeah, that's what they use. They use the Sage to control and launch those things.
Semi-automatic ground environment.
And they got it to work. That was amazing.
But the Canadians realized that the reason they needed Aero to work wasn't because of their national defense. I mean, that was a reason. What they needed was it to work to sell to other countries as a moneymaker. Mm-hmm. And it would have been. I am pretty sure that damn near every Western power would have bought the thing. The problem you run into has nothing to do with national defense. It has to do with economic defense. And the simple reality is that every major country had a big aerospace industry, and they wanted to protect it. The Brits would have been ticked off because they could not have made an argument to not buy the airplane. The Americans would have been way more than ticked off. Hell, we might have invaded Canada again. And don't forget, it was those bloodthirsty Canadians that burned down our capital in, was it 1812, 1814, whenever it was, you know.
During that war?
Of course, we invaded them first, so it's not like we didn't have it coming. My God, we were arrogant back then. We beat the British, we can beat the Canadians. Wrong. New York's in flames, sir. That's okay, we moved everything to Philadelphia. History is fun. I should be a history teacher.
Not.
Yeah, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble telling a bunch of 14-year-olds, grab a beer and listen to my story.
Yeah.
So anyway, Chuck's talking about the titanium. You guys do realize the SR-71 was built out of Russian titanium.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Hey, who says the CIA can't do anything right?
Actually, there's some... I can interject here for a second since you brought
Yes, but we did say sorry for the White House. Well, apology accepted. All is forgiven. We love you guys.
On the SR-71, they were having trouble with some of the titanium parts failing. They would break, and they couldn't figure out why. I mean, this stuff's titanium. You know, it's the hardest, toughest stuff in the world.
Titanium.
So anyway, they put a lot of effort in trying to figure out what caused this, and from what I remember reading, they figured out that it was the water that they were using.
It was a fluoride, wasn't it?
No, they were using water to quench it, but depending on the time of year that of the water that they used, that caused it to fail. There was something changed in the water.
This is in California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
yeah.
the runoff from the mountains or something like that.
I remember faintly reading about this, that it was certain times of year they used a different water source or
Yeah,
something.
it contaminated the titanium and caused it to weaken.
Titanium.
Man, can you imagine the guy who figured that out finally?
There are some smart people out there.
Yeah. Details you'd have to pay attention to figure that one out. So did I get
one more thing.
did I get that right, guys, or I totally messed that one up? Somebody out there probably knows.
Oh, TG's talking about the beavers and the otters that were flown in the 60s. Actually, they were flying them back in the 40s and 50s. Have you guys ever heard of an airplane called a Nordoon Norseman? Okay. If you're familiar with old de Havillands like the beavers and the otters, you've probably heard of the Nordoon Norseman. That is the airplane that the famous band leader Glenn Miller was in when he was lost. Now, the Norseman was kind of an otter. Now, real quick, for those who are not into airplanes, there are two de Havilland made airplanes that have big round radial engines on them that are short takeoff and landing planes.
Thanks,
the Beaver.
Bill. He said I was right.
The water. Oh, okay.
I got to be right. My wife never lets me be right. So to be right,
I have not had enough to drink to even begin to go there. So the Beaver, which there's still a lot of them around today. It's very popular in Alaska as a bush plane, probably the favorite bush plane. And why don't they just make those things new? God, you'd be selling them left and right for about $4 million a pop. Anyway, the Otter was basically a larger version of the Beaver. I'm trying not to make a. Shut up, Max. Anyway, there was another company that made an airplane called the Nordoon Norseman, which is about on par with the de Havilland Otter. God, I'm such a smart ass. I'm trying to stop myself from being too smart.
Oh, it's chlorine to kill the algae.
I said fluoride. It was chlorine.
You said fluoride, yeah.
To kill. Oh, so it was summertime they had to kill the algae, and wintertime they didn't need it.
Yeah, so the chlorine is what contaminated it.
Told you, man. These
guys
smart.
know. I didn't know what it was. Now I know.
So anyway, the Nordoon Norseman was a big radial engine, high wing liaison plane that could carry a bunch of people. And apparently Glenn Miller was crossing the English Channel. This was when, the famous band leader, Glenn Miller.
Oh, yeah.
In the mood.
Thank you.
Anyway. So they believe now, this pretty considerable research to show that a bunch of British bombers had gone to Germany. The target was socked in. They didn't drop their bombs because they couldn't find the target. They're coming back. The standard pilot, you don't land with a belly full of bombs. You'll take off with them, which is dangerous enough, but you weren't going to land with them. And they would ditch their bombs over the ocean, or over the English Channel.
Okay.
And they ditched their bombs like they were supposed to. And apparently one of the bombardiers was looking through his bomb sight, saw a little plane fly through right after they had dropped it. They're pretty sure that because the small planes had to fly low to stay out of the way of all them. And they're pretty sure that those bombs
They bombed an airplane.
They bombed an. It may have been the water spouts coming up. They could have got hit. But anyway, that's what they think happened to Glenn Miller. So
what are the odds of something like that happening? Got to be remote.
the crap happens in war. You can't, Really? I didn't know the Beaver carried a bigger load or was faster than a Norseman. That probably explains why the Beavers and the Otters are still around. The Norseman's disappeared after the war. But I think the Norseman was an earlier design.
If you want a Beaver, they can build it for you.
They can?
Apparently, that's what he says.
Huh.
Bill.
Here's your trivia for the day, guys. The Twin Otter, which is a turboprop, fixed-gear turboprop, has such a strong following and it's still one of the most useful airplanes out there that it went back into production. A twin-engine, fixed-geared, 14-seat turboprop. Guess what it cost new? They're making the late model 300 with a pointy nose.
What?
$7.7 million.
Oh.
And they are selling like hotcakes.
Wow.
For those, I know most of you guys are familiar with the Twin Otter. De Havilland aircraft have always had a reputation as great short takeoff and landing aircraft. Even the Dash 8, which isn't technically a stall plane, can get off quick. And the Dash 7, which is a stall plane, that's the 4-engine turboprop unpressurized, carries 50 passengers. I watched one of those land at Bader Field, which had a 20... I had trouble getting in there in a Cherokee 6. That's what I understand. Bader, you remember, did you go to Bader with me?
No.
I don't know if it's still open, but there was a little airport right by the casinos in Atlantic City called Bader Field. It was like a $5 cab ride to the casinos. And Bader had...
Oh, wait a minute. No. I think I went with you.
Bader had the two little crossing runways, like 2,200 feet each. I mean, they were tight.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I went there with you once.
Yeah.
You hit a gust or something on takeoff.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Wow. It's been a while. Oh, you remember things good. I'll let you hang around.
Sometimes.
So anyway, I mean, I was on the numbers, full flaps and everything in a Cherokee 6. I see this big 50-passenger Dash 7 de Havilland coming in, and it looked like it was bloody hovering. Yeah, it had so much flap, this 4-inch, and he landed, and he just basically and stopped. He used less runway than I did. But it's not very fast. It's like it's pretty slow up in the air.
Yeah,
but
those barn doors hanging out.
Oh Lord, and but John's talking about the 108. I think he means the Rapier being a bomber interceptor. It was supposed to be a Mach 3 bomber interceptor. Never got past the mock-up stage. But the model, which I think was made by Aurora, the only person I know that has one is Alan Urey, who runs the company Fantastic Plastic, which makes some really wild resin kits. But that tremulous that I have right there is a Fantastic Plastic.
Oh, the airplane on top of the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Hang on. You guys might want to close your eyes for a second. You're about to go belly cam.
Oh. Some of these people are going to get shocked.
Hope you recovered from that. This is a Fantastic Plastic tremulous rocket. Now, I put it in test markings instead of the markings that came, the decals that came with it. This is by Alan Urey's company, Fantastic Plastic. And for those who don't know, the Alan Tremulous designed the Tucker, the automobile that they made the movie about. Yeah, that one. During the war, everybody was afraid the Russians would come up with jet bombers or something that could attack the U.S. So he came up with the idea with a rocket-launched jet fighter, or a rocket fighter. This has a tail cone like a jet, but there's no intake, so I'm not entirely sure. But Alan Tremulous never got past the paper design, but he came up with the idea for this rocket. And Alan was gracious enough to grant me an interview over the phone. And when I did Fantastic Plastic, the history video, I was able to actually speak with considerable authority. But this was his idea, and it was a freaking cool idea too. Just they didn't have the technology to do it. And you'll notice that it says United States Army on the. Okay, there's too much glare. It says United States Army because that's when this thing was conceived.
Back before the Air Force was created.
Yep, 47. The Air Force became the Air Force. Anyway, so how did we get on this topic? I have completely lost my train of thought. I went zipping off on a tangent with no umbilical to bring me back.
I don't remember.
Oh well, who cares?
We're
just here to have a good time. But we were talking about all the Canadian airplanes and everything, and I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Oh, you're talking about how slow a beaver flew, a twin otter.
No, not a twin. Well, they do fly. So no, it was the de Havilland Dash 7, and which is DHC, but they call it Dash, which was the 4-engine version before they came out with the Dash 8, which is a twin-engine airplane that is pressurized. It's a lot faster, but going to Bader, it used almost no bloody runway. Now, the story behind the Dash 7 that cracked me up was, and you got, the F-108, thank you! The Interceptor, the Mach 3 Interceptor that Alan Urey makes a a resin version of, but he has one of the original, like Aurora kits. They ran it for a while, apparently didn't sell. You know, and I hate to say this, but when I was a kid, I probably never would have bought a model of an F-108 because I knew they didn't ever field the airplane.
Yeah.
Now I would love to have one.
Yeah,
you know?
that kind of takes the fun out of buying a model when you know the real thing never really existed.
But now that I'm older and the kits have gotten rare, I'll say, "Oh, I should have bought that. I could have had that for 78 cents. That was $300. That ain't right."
50 years later.
Rarity, baby, rarity. The fact that they didn't make a lot of them. You know, you guys, we have got to give Aurora credit. Those guys are bloody fearless. Hey, I saw a picture of this. Let's make one. Andy Anches had told me about his first day at Aurora. You know, he's working his machinery, and Gia Marino comes up and goes, with 2 pictures in a magazine of a Mangusta. And he's kind of like, "Hey, stop what you're doing. Make one of these." Okay, yeah. Sure. Why not?
I remember you telling me sometimes they would make airplanes, I'm not sure which company, because they just wanted to be first. They didn't care whether it was
Well, that was Aurora. They were all about being first, which has a quality on its own. That fearlessness. Look, we got to be first in the marketplace, and it looks kind of cool. Get it?
What are you doing?
Trying to get my hand around it. Okay, that totally went uncool. Thought I was going to be cool and put my. Oh, guess screw it. What am I doing? You see the logo on the upper left?
Yeah.
I thought it would be cool if I put my hand, but everything's reversed, so it's the. Anyway,
how much did you have to drink? What was in that tea?
Nothing. Ken, you've known me long enough to know I don't have to have a cocktail to act like an idiot.
That is true.
Anyway, the whole idea, Aurora realized, if you guys ever seen that movie, Margin Call, really great film. The Jerry Marins gives a big speech about there. You know, there's 3 ways to win. You can be smartest, you know, you can be best, or you can be smartest. You can cheat, but it's easiest just to be first. Well, he's right. The Aurora realized that if they could get a product to market ahead of everybody else, there is a market for any new model, any new thing. If you guys ever watch the TV show Mad Men, he talks about that new. It's like a salve. You know, people want whatever's new. Aurora knew this, and they worked hard to get stuff to market before anybody else did. And if it was inaccurate, so what? It was first. It was there. It was the only thing that was available, and that had a quality all its own. For a long time, while they were in the model business, it served them well. But once they started moving into games, went head to head with Milton Bradley, they got, you know, and they sold a lot of games, but they didn't make a profit. There's a difference between selling a lot of something and making money with it. And in the end, it is a business.
Fast Sports says a 148th resin CF105 releases this fall.
Oh, cool.
That would be interesting.
One of the expensive kits is the 1/72nd scale Aurora CF105, and somebody sent me one that they had built and it had gotten old, and somebody else sent me the decals for it.
Oh, nice.
So I have it in the shell. All I got to really do is sand it down, repaint it. The fact that it doesn't need a lot of work is kind of one of the reasons that I haven't gotten around to it yet. But after tonight, I probably will, because I always wanted to. The thing is, Aurora kits are pretty basic, but they made interesting subject matter. I mean, they're creatures, and Abe Shikes never liked being the creature company, but when he basically got retired from Aurora, he started Adar, and a lot of the stuff he made were creatures because he knew they solved it. In the end, it was a business, and he made the Planet of the Apes figures and a bunch of others. These were new molds. And he also leased a bunch of the out-of-service Aurora molds, the cheap stuff from when they were kids, and started popping the airplanes in 2-in-1. And, oh, here, kid, here's 2 models in one box. And it was just the old Aurora crap of the early days. Okay, I shouldn't say crap, but it was the old Aurora kits from the early days. And they kind of were crap. Anyway, but for their time, they were okay. But the thing is that a kid sees, hey, look, I can get 2 models for the price of one. That was a marketing thing. And for a while, it worked. But
I find it kind of amusing that here's a company that's in the business to make money, and they find a product that sells, but they don't like the product.
Well, You got to remember that they had. There's an old European, and I want to say Irish, but it may not be Irish. There's an old European or Irish or British bar game called Skittle Bowl, which was that Aurora made that, and they had enormous success with it. So they were like, "Oh, we need to be in the games business," because you have to remember, Aurora, unlike Monogram, Aurora was a plastics company, just like Revell was. Okay, back when it was Precision Plastics, I think. They were plastics companies that got into models later on. Now, they loved it, but they got into it later on. And if it hadn't been for Ray Haynes, Aurora probably never would have gotten into models. He owned HMS, which made a lot of the molds and everything. And he was the one that came in with a couple of Hawk models and said, "Hey, we should be making this stuff." And they literally copied him down to the point where it said Hawk models. Yeah, they got in trouble over that one. Anyway, but back to the point. Monogram, on the other hand, had always been a model company. They've been making wood, and they inched into plastic. We'll make some plastic accessories, and they moved into a very, very conservative company.
Right.
These three companies could not have had more different personalities. AMT and later MPC had made promotional models for car companies and got into the model business that way.
Right.
In fact, Hawk, Monogram, and Lindbergh, if I'm not mistaken, which was originally Olin, were the only three that were actually kind of model companies from the get. Aurora, Revell are plastics companies that get into models. MPC, or AMT, later MPC, are promo companies that eventually realize we can get into making models. Airfix is a plastics company in England, is a rubber and plastics company that gets into models almost by accident. They make this Ferguson tractor. No, not Massey Ferguson.
Yeah.
They make this Ferguson tractor, and they realize, hey, we're making these promos and paying people to put them together, but you know what? We can sell them as a kit, and the kids will probably, people will probably buy them. And they kind of get into it that way. So each of these companies has, and it kind of defines their personalities. Monogram being a kit model company from day one. And these guys have been at Comet making balsa models before that.
I remember Comet. I had I had some of their models.
You didn't realize that Comet was started by a teenager.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I did not know that.
They've been pretty good about documenting their history lately. I think one of the descendants of the people, his granddaughter or something, started putting videos out about it.
That's how I got into building airplanes, was through a Comet model.
Which one?
It was actually 4 airplanes in one that was increasing in difficulty and skill in building. And it came with everything you needed: pins, glue, sticks, tissue, everything you needed to build these things. And it just fascinated me. And ever since then, I've always been interested in building airplanes. So the Comet got me into that.
Well, Paul points out that Matchbox and International Toy Company, ITC, were also companies that moved into plastic models. They'd made toys first. Renwall had made, which is Lawner spelled backwards. He just literally spelled his name backwards to get the name Renwall. He had been making doll furniture and stuff like that. A lot of them, and clear the plasticware and stuff. So, all these companies had their own way, and Italeri was another one that actually started off as pretty much as a model company. And I'm sorry, that was Eschi. Italeri might have also. Man, I've done bios on both of them, but I get so much information, it starts to go into overload after a while. And Eschi is actually an acronym, ESCI, which I cannot remember what it stands for, but it basically means the International Trading Company. And there was Hobbycraft up in Canada, and a lot of countries developed kit model industry, but it was Intex was one of those companies like Atlantis and Round 2 that primarily used molds that have been retired from other companies. So they kind of, and
that's
Glencoe
an inexpensive way of getting into it.
Well, the problem you have though is that if you can get a new generation of buyers, that's fine. But generally speaking, these days that won't fly, because there's a pretty hardcore cadre of model builders, and now a bunch of whom are tuned in talking to us right now.
Yeah.
There's a pretty hardcore cadre of buyers, and they will spot real quick if you just. And a lot of them will, and with thanks to the internet, this is old XYZ company's old kit. They're just repopping. Now, when you're like Atlantis, and you kind of tell them, hey, we're repopping old kits from Atlantis just announced. I just got the email today. And Steve had mentioned this also. Atlantis just announced they're putting out the Blue Angels F11 Tiger 4-plane set, and I think they're doing the glow-in-the-dark King Kong, and they got the Moon Eyes Dragster. So these things are going to be coming out soon.
The F11s?
The Tiger, yeah.
Props?
No, it's a jet. It's a real super pointy-looking jet. The F-11 was a short-lived Navy fighter that had no freaking range. That it only had like a 45-minute flight duration, but it was the first Navy fighter that could go like Mach 1 in level flight or something like that. I know the Cutlass was their first supersonic fighter. I want to say the F-11 was the first one that could do Mach 1 either in level flight or maybe it was Mach 1 with a single engine. But anyway.
Is that one that was really difficult to fly?
Yeah, it was a trick. Now, the Cutlass was the one that was dangerous.
Oh, okay.
The F-11 was just a little tricky. But the F-11 is a super... They used it for about 10 years as the Blue Angels because it looked good but it was an early generation jet fighter. It was exactly what you expect. It had a short service life like back then planes did.
Right.
Because they made a single engine jet that was small enough to fit on a carrier that could go Mach 1, but being that small, it didn't have a lot of room for fuel, so they made it short range, like you do. Because it had an engine that would just gas. And but the Cutlass was the one that was so bad. They actually had, and you have to remember this back in the days when the captain of an aircraft carrier was Lord and High Master, and his word was law. And I remember reading about there was never nothing wrong with the F1. The Cutlasses were always broken. Okay, there was never one that was like, oh, everything on this plane works. And but it was a Mach 1. It had the twin tails and the big wing, and no, it had the twin fins and no tail. And
isn't that one on a stick in Panama?
I'm not sure.
At a rest stop or something like that?
No, that's an F9. That's a Cougar.
Oh, okay.
No, hold on. Let me find a picture real quick. I'm going to post this. I know most of the folks really already know what it looks like, but Cutlass, which they called the Gutless jet. That's the Cutlass.
Yeah, that's the one I saw on the stick.
That's on a stick?
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that. Okay, let me throw it up here real quick. All right. Paste and...
Because I remember seeing that thing. I thought, wow, that's a weird-looking airplane. And I asked you about it, and you told me that they didn't stay in service very long.
No, like they were in the fleet like 2 years. I mean, we are talking probably a record in short life of a jet fighter. There we go. Plus image. Why did it go there? Yeah, okay. Live streams 34. Okay, there it is. That is a Vought F7U Gutless. And I think it was the first Navy jet to go supersonic.
That went supersonic?
Yeah. It had two little dinky, I think, Westinghouse engines. And had like an 11-foot long nose gear. I mean, that airplane was a bloody nightmare. And, but the...
Sounds like somebody started out with a concept and just didn't want to abandon the concept, so they just kept putting Band-Aids on it to make it work.
Because that never happens. This is the F-11 Tiger. Sleek-looking airplane.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
The problem the Tiger had was that it was... the Tiger was... it had like no freaking range. And I understand it was really tricky to get on a carrier. Probably not as bad as the Cutlass, but... I'll save as F11. And we'll just plus image. Give me just a second here. Almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there. Okay, there's the F11. which is a heck of a lot sleeker looking than the Cutlass. But the guys at Atlantis just released the 4 airplane Blue Angels kit with the F-11 Tigers in it, which is I don't know if it's old Revell, but anyway. Now the King Kong they just released the old Aurora kit. You know they've got those guys got a ton of molds that they picked up in that purchase, so they're finding all kinds of cool stuff. And it's great that they're reintroducing the stuff because great. You know, they're not
people our age go buy it that either
build
had
them
it
as
and
kids
lost
or wanted it and didn't have it.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yep. Or wanted it and could afford it.
But I saw an F-11 parked out. I forget where it was, but
You got the comments covered up over there.
oh shoot, sorry. Folks are talking to me, and oh wow.
A lot of stuff coming in. McDonald.
Yeah,
Demons.
the problem with the F-7U, as Anshalak pointed out, the big problem with the F-7 was the engines.
Yeah.
They were, and there's a famous footage of one of them crashing on the deck, and yes, the pilot was killed. They actually had an aircraft carrier captain that about mid-cruise, they were having so many problems, so many accidents. They told I want to say they're off the coast of Spain. He told all the airplanes to fly to the Navy base.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was Cadiz or where it was. But he says, I think they were in the Mediterranean. He says, get these damn things off my ship. And he kicked an entire freaking squadron off the ship. And I was like, wow.
I guess he didn't want one banging his ship up.
The F1, but the F-11 and the Cutlass were also, jets were new. They were learning as they went. Yeah. When I was a little kid, you'd see the pictures of these things. That thing looked so Johnny Quest. You were like, oh, I want to fly that. No, you don't, kid.
No, you don't.
I can't find one these days, and I don't remember the names of them. But when I was a kid, the library had these books that were like these rectangular blue books. You would open them up, and they would have pictures of the jets with all the ordnance they could carry laid out in front.
Yeah.
And I always thought, oh, look at all that crap that can carry. Now,
not at once.
You got to understand that I'm growing up in the 60s. So jets are still making sonic booms overhead. And I can remember being in the first grade, so we're talking 67, right? We're like, jet was, and I was 6 years old and I knew what it was. And the teacher's like, remember those jets are, I'm like, and all of a sudden I'm staring out the window and I'm just dreaming of flying jets. I was like,
you are.
Well, not a Mach 1. But I had no idea how dangerous those bloody jets were to fly either. But they couldn't. Hey, I was disappointed to learn they couldn't carry everything at once. Like, what? I've been gypped. And I remember all the rockets and bombs they'd have laid out. And of course, being a militarist little kid, you're like, ooh, ah.
They usually did those at shows.
Look at all the boom they can carry.
I remember as a kid realizing how limited.
Yeah, maybe it was Rhoda. That sounds
limited
right.
the amount of stuff those planes could actually carry and how short a range that they had. I thought, they don't fly forever and carry.
Not only that, you watch the Bridge of Tokaree. Okay, so let's get this right. You got some 20mm cannons and 12 rockets. That's it. Or maybe a couple of 500-pounders. That's it. But I actually go back on YouTube once in a while, watch these old training films like flying the Skyray and everything, and I'm kind of like, oh man, I remember being a kid. Those things were just so cool. I mean, come on, look at the cartoons we had. Johnny Quest.
Oh yeah.
I mean, every little boy wanted to be Johnny Quest.
I mean, look at the airplane they got to fly around.
Yeah, was the penguin, pelican, whatever, the Pelican. No, that's the name of that thing. And yes, Claire, I did. Thank you very much. I actually have it right here. I actually have 2 of them now. Dun, 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 dun.
What's that?
Godzilla.
Oh, somebody was asking about him?
Yeah, it was sent to me.
Oh, nice.
I think one of them I had found, but a great magazine too, though.
Nobody's gonna want to watch us looking at
The
magazines.
famous scene. This is burned into the memory of everybody who grew up in the 60s. Like,
Oh yeah, I remember
because
that.
I even mentioned that at the Gundam USA store in St. Augustine, they have a bunch of 1 to 144 scale pagodas, and the first thing somebody commented on is you got to get a King Kong Godzilla to go with your pagoda. And
Oh, it looks like we're starting to lose people. Of course, we've been doing this for 2 hours.
It's 2 a.m. in the UK, and oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock already.
Yeah. Wow, time flies.
You know, Chuck's pointing out that before the T-38s, the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels used F-4 Phantoms, and they had backseaters in them,
Yeah.
spotters. And
I remember that.
so do I. And apparently, now I've heard the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels and their Skyhawks and their T-38s, and they are loud as hell. But apparently, people were disappointed when they quit using the Hogs because the Phantoms made so much noise. And I think, God, Americans.
Well, people like the noise. I mean, have you been to a show in the last 10 years, something like that? They'll do their maneuvers. Jets go off way off on one side, off in the corner, and then this one sneaky guy comes in over here at almost Mach 1 and flies right down the flight range, right in front of everybody. Just
And no one ever
screaming
sees him
loud.
coming, yeah.
Nobody ever sees him coming. Everybody goes, "Oh, hey, that was cool." So now they do it twice. They sneak that in there twice in their routine. But I always know when they're going to do it, so I'm looking for it, and I see it coming. I don't say anything, but I see it coming.
Well,
And
I've
it's
told.
just cool just to be that close to all that jet noise.
Yeah. I remember 1995. I'm flying a Cessna 172 up the coast of Florida. I get past Daytona, and my teeth start vibrating. And my teeth are like, what is it? And the airplane picks up the harmonic. And I, what the heck's going on? I was over Daytona Speedway at 3,500 feet. And it was the car. I'm
Those things are
3,500
loud.
feet straight up. And it's those cars are making my teeth vibrate.
I've been at one of those races. Everybody's got hearing protection on.
God almighty.
Everybody.
And I've never even been to a Top Fuel race. I can only imagine what a dragster sounds like.
All right, let me tell you one other flying story that I've got.
Okay, go ahead.
I was in Piper Warrior. I was flying from Manassas. I was going up to Montgomery County. And I was flying right next to back then they called TSAs, which is Class A airspace now.
Where? Oh, wait.
National.
You talking about... Okay, back then it was TCAs, Terminal
TCAs.
Control Areas.
Right, it was a TCA. So I was just outside of the TCA, and I was flying in the Dulles Arsa. And so I'm flying
That's
north.
Airport Radar Service Area.
Right. A lot easier to fly in, which is why I wasn't flying in the TCA.
Arsas and Tersas.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm flying
Terminal
up there,
Radar Service Area.
and minding my business, flying home. And of course, you got to be in contact with the controller. So he calls me up and he says, "You have traffic at 11 o'clock. Okay, I'll watch for it." And then not too much longer after that, I hear this British voice come over, and he's asking where the traffic was, referring to me. So I thought, okay, didn't think much of it. And so I'm looking for the traffic, and here it is. It's the Concorde. I'm off the end of Dulles Airport runway, and that's where they land. And he went right by me, and I got on the radio, and I said, my call sign, I said, "I have the traffic in sight. It's gorgeous."
I've never seen I've seen the Concorde many times from the ground. I used to work at Dulles, but I never saw it in the air, from the air. I did see a B-2 in the air one time in Boston. They were doing some kind of public service thing.
Yeah.
And I'm flying along, a B-2 goes flying by, and that thing looks really cool in the air.
But
Especially when the air looking at it.
that was just one of those once in a lifetime moments that you just never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching, and he turned to final, and I saw him land on the runway, and it was just
Did he have a snoot dropped already when you saw him?
no.
No,
No,
okay.
he
so
didn't
it's
drop that until he turned final.
I used to see it fly over a fair bit, but I never saw it from the air. Well, guys, I think that wraps up tonight's live stream. I'm going to leave the comment sections open for a while. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We had a great night. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And I want to thank everybody all of the wonderful wishes for my 60th birthday. And I'm 60! Oh, well. All right. There went my midlife crisis.
Get over it, man. 60's been so far in my rearview mirror, I can't even see it anymore.
Yeah. Take it like a man. What is that
Yeah.
great? One of my favorite lines from, well, Ken lives in Fort Lauderdale, Steve. I can't. Oh, I didn't know you. Wait. John, are you saying you got to sit in the Concorde or you got to ride as a passenger in the Concorde? Because you said I was in it, but I never flew it. You mean you never flew in it or you didn't get to take the controls? And John, if you're going to be free, I'll you can set up a Zoom when we're done here. We'll chat for a few minutes. So I am going to go ahead and sign off for the evening, but we'll leave everything running for a few minutes so you guys can chat amongst yourselves. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You've helped make my wunderbar 60th birthday.
Yeah, and y'all hung around for 2 hours, too.
Oh, this is an awesome crowd, man.
Yeah, these guys are great.
And once again, I want to say thanks for the models that got sent in today. And Frank, I do appreciate it. I will see what I can do with that. I'll put it with the stuff in the Tarbus, and we'll see what we can do. So, guys, take care of yourselves. And once again, appreciate you checking in. As always, model on.
Hi, guys.
Say model on, Ken.
Model on.
Okay, we're going to do this again.
Did I get that right?
No, you didn't. It's not model on. Not model.
Okay.
Try it one more time. Okay.
All right.
Guys, as usual, model on.
Model on. How was that?
Much better.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Where's the microphone's still hot.
Okay. I won't say anything.
Shh.